4 years ago, I started my business Coconut VA from absolutely zero. Today, we are doing over $3 million of annual revenue. We have over 150 contractors, VAs working with us. And the best part is I barely touch the day-to-day operations at this point. Now, I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because I've seen a lot of founders get stuck in the admin work, get very much stuck in the day-to-day operations of their business. And I am here to tell you that it is possible to take a vacation without your business falling apart and get out of the day-to-day operations and really get back to doing that high level strategy type work. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I built this multi-million-dollar business, and I will show you the exact systems that we used to rely on virtual assistants to run our company. Let's dive in. Back in August of 2021, my co-founder and I started Coconut VA. Now, this was not our first rodeo with virtual assistants. We had one previous company called Venture Validator, where we would basically vet through other people's startup ideas and say, hey, here's your target market. Let's go survey them. Let's go interview them. Let's see if your idea has any merit. And now we used virtual assistants a lot in this company. So they would be doing a lot of the research, a lot of building the actual reports, while we would be more of the client facing. We would be talking to the clients, telling them, hey, here's what your report told you. Here's whether or not you should continue this business or completely kill off this idea. So once we really started getting traction with Venture Validator, a lot of our clients were entrepreneurs that, if they had a good idea, if they had a good company going, they would start to ask us, hey, how did you find this virtual assistant? How did you find somebody so talented overseas? Because they typically had never done that or had just not found anybody with really high quality talent overseas. Now, after a while, we actually started to do some really ad hoc sourcing, recruiting work for these clients just on the side. We would say, hey, we found this incredible person. They actually know somebody else who could be a great fit for what you're trying to do, for what you're trying to hire out. And the feedback we got initially was incredible. People were very, very happy with the talent that they found. A lot of those early clients are still clients with us today, now at Coconut VA. So that's, 4+ years so far of a great, perfect, VA to client match. So we saw that there was some real value here. We were at Venture Validator, so we used a lot of these systems, this, survey platform that we were using to test out this new idea. So we tested the idea out with, 500+ entrepreneurs to say, hey, this is what the virtual assistant space looks like right now. Here's what we would build for you. What do you think? And they would give us a score on a scale of 1 to 10. And Coconut VA, this idea that we were workshopping, was scoring very, very high, higher than most of the other ideas that we had tested at Venture Validator. So that was very intriguing for us. So we really started to wind down Venture Validator and then start to ramp up Coconut VA because we saw this early success. We saw this, these wow factor type moments happening where clients were really just amazed at the talent that we could find them. And so we wanted to build on that momentum. And the early growth was better than we even expected. We hit $500,000 of ARR within the first 8 months, and we hit the first $1 million of ARR within about the first year and a half. But the real big test came for us even just 1 month after we started. So a month after launching Coconut VA, me and my co-founder did something that most founders would think is pretty insane. What we did was we forced ourselves to go on vacation for 2 weeks. So I was the first guinea pig. I shut myself off from work completely. No laptop, no checking emails, no checking Slack, anything like that. This wasn't me being reckless or lazy or anything like that. I was itching to get back to work, but it was a very intentional test. In those early days, we talked a lot about the bus test, or the bus principle. If I got ran over by a bus, what was going to happen to the company? And this strategic vacation was a way to test that out. If I was really no longer in the day-to-day process, what was still breaking? So this was really just about testing our delegation skills, our systems from day one, our automations even. And what we saw was really promising. We saw that, hey, we have done a good job at writing down our systems, documenting our processes, handing them off to the right people, because we actually grew during that time where I took a vacation. I was completely, out of touch with the company. And at the same time, or very soon after, we did the same test with my co-founder and saw the same thing. We were able to see what processes could not be done without him. We saw what documentation we still needed to create. But during that time where he was away from the company, same principle. We actually grew during that time, and we were able to delegate a lot of those tasks permanently. So that means a lot of the tasks that my co-founder and I were doing were no longer on our plates, and we could get back to those high-level strategy type tasks. Since then, we followed this exact same blueprint to scale to multi-million dollars of annual recurring revenue, and I want to show you exactly how we did that. Okay, so how did we actually do it? Step one, we started documenting absolutely everything. Any task that we would do, especially the recurring ones, but also any of the one-off tasks like unique placements or any other kind of one-off task, we would document it. So really what that means is basically just throwing up a Loom video video, a Loom recording, a screen recorder of some kind, and just giving commentary as you go through a task. So, if I was faced with a unique placement or even a unique project on Venture Validator, I would go through this project and go through my thinking on, hey, this is exactly how I would complete this, and walk them through the step-by-steps. It's okay if there's awkward pauses, silences, anything like that is totally fine, because what you can do is obviously trim and edit that Loom video however you would like. But nowadays you can also throw that video into some kind of AI, and that will trim it up for you, and it can also pull out the SOP. So it can also pull out the step-by-step process that you need to actually give to somebody. So we did that heavily, especially in the early days, but we continue to do that now, where anything that we are pioneering, we're kind of paving the way as founders to come up with a new process. We'll record a Loom video, say, hey, this is how I did it, this is the software I found, this is how I would structure this is again the problem that we're solving and the outcome that we want. Every time we do that, it works incredibly well. We're able to delegate that to somebody else without really any big issues. Now, step 2, this one is interesting. We hired very strategically, especially with executive assistants. We've really had some magic happen with executive assistants. We got very lucky with our very first hire. We hired Donna. She was our executive assistant, and she is now the CEO of Coconut. So it's been an incredible journey to see her growth and to see how things have changed for her. That will not happen every single time, but we've also hired several other executive assistants where they will work with us founders for 6 months to a year. We'll handpick them for whatever reason, right? Their personality, their work ethic, their experience, all of those things combined, and then they will actually get to know the business, learn the business, because they're in such close proximity to us, the founders. And then typically they find that their passion either is to continue staying with us as our executive assistant, or what's happened a few times is say, hey, I actually have a really big passion for HR or for management. Could I learn more? Could I grow in my role at Coconut and kind of go beyond being an executive assistant? And it's been incredible to see several different people have journeys that start as an executive assistant with my co-founder or myself, and then continue to grow beyond that into new roles that are still extremely valuable, but honestly are just taking on more and more breadth and more depth even at Coconut. And again, the very best example of that is Donna. She started as our first executive assistant, but we continued to just give her more and more responsibility. We continue to just give her outcomes, right? Like, hey, this is what we want to do. Here's the tools that we have available. Just go for it. And then she would really fill in the gaps. And I think the practice of doing that over and over again really benefited, her problem solving skills, but also her feeling of autonomy. And we did trust her, right? Like, we kind of went out on a limb. We took that leap of faith of saying, hey, we're just going to give this to you. Let us know what you need help on, but feel free to fill in the gaps for yourself. And she did an incredible job at that. And that's really a great test that you can do for your executive assistant, your VA. See how they do if you give them that trust. You may get burned once or twice. We've had that happen before with other executive assistants, with other VAs, where it doesn't work out and they're not able to fill in those gaps. But then you always find these amazing people you can attract, with giving them the right autonomy, giving them the right instruction, giving them that ability to make their own decisions. And then you can really just kind of see them thrive. And again, for Donna, that meant taking on bigger projects, managing more and more people, to the point where she is now literally running the day-to-day operations of Coconut VA. By the way, before I explain the nitty-gritty how-to systems of what we actually did to grow this company using assistants, if you want a hired, trained, experienced virtual assistant, feel free to look at the link in the video description. That will route you to a free call with our team. We also have a free trial period, which I can talk about at the end of this video. But basically, you get to pick your VA that you want, work with them for free, and then at that point, you can decide whether or not you want to work with them part-time, full-time, moving forward. If not, totally fine. We will do that free work for you. Now back to the video. So here are the systems that we used to make all of this work. Of course, what we've already talked about is just that ruthless documentation. You need to be documenting everything. You need to be writing it down, recording it, doing something to write down your thought process, getting that out onto paper, onto a video. There's so many different tools now that can repurpose that Loom recording, that screen recorder, and then put that into step-by-step processes for other people. Another thing you also need is just very clear ownership. Every process, every role in the company should be very clearly defined and have a very clearly defined owner as well. So if you have a question about any part of the business, you know exactly who to go to get that question answered and to see, okay, how has this person done in completing that role? And the big differentiator here is that they are owning the results, right? So you are not having to be inside of that process anymore. They are owning the results. They're owning the problem solving, everything. They can always come to you with questions, with ideas, or even solution ideas, right? Like, hey, here's this problem. Here's this outcome we want. They can put together a proposed solution instead of a, hey, I ran into all of these problems. What they really should be doing is coming up with potential solutions, executing those solutions if they're confident enough, or even just running that by you real quick. It's so much easier for you as a founder to take 15 seconds to, a minute to look at somebody's proposed solution and say, hey, this looks great, run with it. Or, hey, I would just edit one or two things here. It's so much easier than having to, start at the beginning, walk through the entire problem set, come up with your own solutions, work that through with somebody. If there is a proactive VA that can be doing all of that for you, that just takes off so much from your plate, not even just the execution part of it, but also for the mental bandwidth of you having to come up with solutions for each and every problem. Another system that we use are quarterly one-on-ones. So Donna, the CEO, she meets with the team constantly, but me as the founder, I still do a lot of these one-on-ones. I do them all every single quarter. So I meet with every single team member, even if I didn't have a hand in hiring them, even if I don't know them super well or know this new role very well, because I'm just not in the day-to-day as much. I'm still meeting with each and every person. Now, these one-on-ones that I do, 60% of that is just personal time, right? We're just catching up with each other. I get to know them better. I just treat them as a human being, as a friend. I really want to get to know them. And then 20% is spent on the work side. So what's going well, what's not going well, what are your highs and your lows? And oftentimes when they're expressing their lows, what they're struggling with, we usually come up with some kind of automation, some kind of new system, or even a new hire that we need to make to take something off of their plate that really is just not their cup of tea. It's really not their genius zone. And then that last 20% are on some kind of standardized questions or question set. It's like a survey interview type thing where I ask the same questions to every single team member, and it's usually a comparison. So for example, this last time I did, culture scores. What was the culture like when you first joined the team? If that was 8 months ago or 4 years ago, what kind of culture did we have? What score out of 10 would you give the Coconut culture? And then fast forward to today, what is that today? And then it's really interesting to see the pattern across VAs and different time periods, right? When did they come into Coconut? What was the culture score then? And what is it today? And it's fascinating to see those patterns and then kind of analyze those qualitative results. The last system that we use is building a community, not just a company and not just a corporate structure. We want this truly to feel like a community. So we are very proactive in catching milestones and catching personal life milestones as well. So, if you hit your 6-month mark or your 1-year mark or 2, 3, 4-year mark with Coconut, you'll get some kind of gift, usually a gift box, but also for personal milestones. So, if you had a new baby, if you got a new dog, or if, unfortunately a friend or family member passes away, we are always trying to be very proactive and mindful of that and say, hey, we care about you as a person. We're sorry for your loss, or hey, congratulations on this big milestone. Really, with a remote first type company, and for yourself, if you are working with a VA remotely, it's very important to stay on top of those, because then it just brings you closer as human beings, where it's harder to cultivate that connection when you're never truly in person. But we found that to be an excellent way to maintain a really high quality community where everyone still feels very connected. So after all of that, what has this all resulted in? It's really resulted in a company that, we were at $1 million of annual recurring revenue with about 6 team members. Now we're getting close to 4 million ARR with about 15 team members. And honestly, we could get to 10 million ARR with probably only 3 to 5 more hires, just with the bandwidth that the team has. We recently acquired another staffing agency, and we didn't even have to hire anybody else. We didn't have to bring in anybody else onto the team. Part of that is due to AI and all this automation that we've built out. Part of that is just the systems that we have, and a lot of it is just the amazing people that we've brought on. And it's incredible to see the amazing individuals we have on the team that are able to take on so much, and we're still able to have a work-life balance because everything is documented. So if anybody needs to step out for a day, 2 days, a week, if a family member passes away, close family member, and they need to take a week off to recover and then really start to get back into it after that, we have the systems in place to make that happen. So today we have Donna, running the entire day-to-day operations. She's based in the Philippines. We have our sourcing and our talent team that are constantly sourcing the best talent from the Philippines. We have our client success manager who's talking with every single client, constantly checking in with them, making sure that their VA and the client is working well together and it's a perfect fit. All of these team members are based in the Philippines. We have 1 team member based in Brazil. Everybody is offshore, outsourced, except for me, based here in the US. And really, my role has completely transformed from day one. Day one, it was a lot of that wearing every single hat, pioneering everything, figuring out what software we're going to use, what CRM we're going to use, what email provider we're going to use. Everything was up to me and my co-founder, basically. Slowly but surely, we've documented every step along the way. And now, 4 years later, we've gotten to a point where my day-to-day is very different than what it used to be. And it's finally getting to that point where I really have a solid work-life balance. I am still very anxious to grow Coconut, anxious to be, working in Coconut. There's probably times where I'm too much into the process, where I just need to let my people handle things. But it's incredible to see the growth that we've had from day one to now, year 4. And the work-life balance has definitely been the biggest blessing for me in my life, where I can be very present at work, but I can also be very present with my family as a father to my 2 young kids. It's been fantastic. It's been wonderful to see that transformation and to feel that transformation over time. It took a lot of work to get to this point, and a lot of training and a lot of hiring the right people. But all of those little experiments, all of that, taking a leap of faith on somebody and trusting them has led me to this point. So it has 100% been worth it. So at this point, I'm not grinding 80-hour work weeks anymore to grow Coconut to the next level. I'm really just spending the most amount of my time on this high quality, high level, what is going to take the company to the next level. Things like this, right? Content. I can just be present as a father and as a husband every single day while just working on the projects at Coconut that I am passionate about and where my skill set will really shine. So how can you start doing this in your business? The first step is probably admitting that you might be the bottleneck. You could be the bottleneck in your company. Every founder believes that they need to be involved in everything, that they need to have their hand in everything. And that can be true, especially in the early days when you really do need to be wearing every hat. You might not be able to afford any help, right? And so you might be in every single process of the business. Most founders miss this point where they don't need to be involved in everything, and there is probably a better person for each and every one of the roles at your company. You might be an amazing jack of all trades that can do everything to, an 80% completion rate or 80% perfection rate, right? And that's an amazing skill set to have, and that's incredible for building a company from the ground up. But there are other people who can take that one task, that one responsibility, and do it now with a 95% completion rate or perfection rate. And you need to be able to believe that, right? And believe that somebody else can do this part of the job better than you. So I would start by identifying what is really draining you, what just drains the energy out of you to do in your business, and start with delegating that. Find something that is just not exciting for you, or if it's not in your skill set, something that, if we go back to that 80%, if you're taking all of these different founder roles on, wearing all of these different hats, if there's one part of the business where you're just really struggling to do well and maybe getting it to that 60% perfection rate, delegate that as soon as you possibly can. And my recommendation is to begin with hiring a VA, maybe 20 hours per week. Some people start with a lot fewer hours than that just because that's all the budget allows. That can work, but the only issue there is that you are probably not going to be attracting the very best talent. The very best talent, they want to be in a job role that has stability, that has consistency, and that will last a long time. And so they're looking for jobs that are part-time, at least 20 hours a week, but even more likely full-time. So if you can start with a full-time VA, that's fantastic. It will probably cost you $3,000 or much less per month. But if you need to, you can start with a minimum of 20 hours per week. And that is somebody that can really take on responsibility, ownership of a role for you, instead of just one or two little tasks here and there where you'll still have to be involved. You'll still have to be answering questions. Part-time VA, you're probably going to get some of the very best talent out there, and you're likely going to be finding somebody that can take ownership of a role instead of just a task doer. And lastly, to make this work, I would say you just need to stop thinking about VAs as task doers. A lot of people have negative connotations in their minds when they think of VAs, when they think of outsourcing. They think of US Bank, right, with their call centers and people that they've had bad experiences with on the customer service side. But those VAs, those outsourced workers, that's typically like a starter job. That's an entry-level position that's not going to be the very best of the best talent of the Philippines. On the flip side, you can find amazing director-level talent, and this is where Coconut comes in. We find you the perfect fit virtual assistant, executive assistant to really take all the admin work off of your plate. And like I've mentioned before, this is somebody that you are going to trust to really take over a role, to take over the ownership of a role, of a job, of a project, and really just completely take that off of your plate. And within 2 to 3 months, we've seen most of our clients start to buy back a significant portion of their time and really be able to focus on those high-level strategy tasks. So if you're ready to stop being a bottleneck in your business and start growing your business, taking it to the next level, click that link in the video description and we will book a call with you. It'll be a free call. We'll talk about your specific situation, what we can do to provide the very best talent for you, and see if we can find you that perfect fit. Again, that's the first link in the description below. Book a free call. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.